They say love is for everyone, but the love of the chosen one? That's not love. That's a divine force. It doesn't flirt. It doesn't chase. It recognizes. It remembers. The chosen one doesn't fall in love. They descend into it, like stepping into a sacred contract already written in the stars. And that's why their love feels different. Unshakable, uncomfortable, unforgettable. Because it's not made of ego. It's made of truth. They don't love casually. They don't give a piece of themselves. They give all, but only when the soul in front of them is ready to hold it. And most aren't. This isn't about fairy tales. This is about spiritual DNA. This is about the one whose presence awakens everything you're not ready to face. And that's why so many run from them. Not because they're unlovable, but because they love in ways the world can't replicate or replace. So if you've ever been told you're too much, if your love scared the wrong people, if your silence spoke louder than their apologies, then maybe it wasn't a weakness. Maybe it was a sign that your heart was never meant to be handled by just anyone, because you are not just anyone. Before we dive deeper, take a moment. If your soul felt this, if your journey brought you here for a reason, tap that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment 99, because 9 is the number of spiritual completion. And if you're still here, your heart is about to remember something it once knew. The love of a chosen one isn't something you fall into. It's something you're initiated into. Because when they love, it's not emotional. It's energetic, spiritual, celestial. It carries codes, blueprints, keys. Their love is not designed to entertain you. It's designed to elevate you. Chosen ones do not seek love for validation. They are already whole. They do not chase butterflies. They build gardens of trust where loyalty can land and transform. But here's the part that most people never understand. When a chosen one chooses you, it's not because you looked good under the right lighting. It's because their soul recognized a light in you that even you might have forgotten. They see potential before it blooms. They see pain before it's confessed. They see purpose beneath the chaos. Because they don't love with the eyes. They love with their third eye, their spirit, their assignment. But this depth comes with a price. Because while their love can heal, it can also confront. It doesn't just tell you you're beautiful, it shows you everything that's been dimming your beauty. Their presence alone can disturb the masks you've worn for years. And not everyone is ready to be seen like that. Most people say they want a deep connection until they meet someone who mirrors their unhealed wounds. You see, a chosen one doesn't play roles. They don't manipulate. They don't adjust themselves to be accepted. They show up as they are, fully, and they expect the same in return. But when they love someone who's still hiding, still pretending, still afraid of their own reflection, that person will often feel threatened instead of cherished. That's why the love of a chosen one is often misunderstood. It can feel overwhelming, too honest, too intense, too fast. But the truth is, it's not fast, it's just clear. Because divine love doesn't need time to convince you. It only needs a soul that's ready to remember. And when they give you their heart, they're not just giving affection, they're giving access to a frequency that not everyone can hold without shaking. This is why chosen ones often walk alone. Because while their love is powerful, it's also dangerous to illusions, to ego, to fear. They love with surgical precision. And most people would rather stay wounded than be touched by something that cuts that deep. But here's the question. What if the very love you pushed away was the one sent to liberate you? What if you weren't rejected by them, but protected from yourself? Because you weren't ready to meet the version of you that their love would have activated. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, maybe it's not too late. Because the next truth might just redefine everything you thought you knew about heartbreak, loyalty, and divine timing. Are you ready? There's a kind of loyalty that can't be taught. It can't be copied. It doesn't come from desperation. It comes from soul memory. That's your loyalty. You didn't learn it from movies. You didn't model it after fairy tales. You were born with it. You showed it before the world deserved it. You stayed loyal to people who didn't even stay loyal to themselves. You stayed when anyone else would have walked away. You believed, even after every red flag waved in your face. You gave your time, your love, your presence. With no scoreboard, no conditions. You gave as if it was a sacred vow, but still, they questioned you. Still, they failed you. Still, they left, or worse, they blamed you for caring too much. And that's when the pain hit different. Not because you were weak, but because your loyalty was so pure. It became a mirror. And in that mirror, they didn't see a threat. They saw themselves, and what they could never give back. You see, most people don't fear being loved. They fear being loved too well, because that kind of love makes them feel unworthy. Your loyalty became a weight they couldn't carry, not because you were too heavy, but because they were too hollow. They called you intense, clingy, overbearing, but let's get honest. That wasn't about you. That was their limit. That was their inability to stand in the light of something they couldn't manipulate or control. Because your loyalty doesn't negotiate. It doesn't fake smiles or play emotional games. It sees through lies. It endures storms. It remembers promises, even the ones never spoken. And that scares people who only know how to love when it's convenient. But you don't love like the world loves. You love like eternity does, with patience, with passion, with presence. And here's the truth no one ever told you. They didn't hurt you because you were naive. They hurt you because your loyalty convicted them. You were living proof that real love still exists, and that made their shallow connections feel exposed. But listen closely, because this part matters. What broke you wasn't their betrayal. It was the realization that they never truly saw you. They saw what they could take, not what you were offering. And maybe, just maybe, their rejection was a divine redirection. Because sacred loyalty should never be wasted on temporary people. So if you're still wondering why you gave so much, why you loved so deeply, why you stayed when logic begged you to run, maybe it's because your love was never meant to be returned the way you gave it. Maybe it was meant to awaken something in them, even if they walked away from it, even if they weren't ready, even if they'll regret it forever. But don't go anywhere, because what I'm about to reveal next will show you why your heartbreak was the unlocking of your purpose. There's a reason your heart has always felt out of place, like it beats to a rhythm no one else can hear. Like your love speaks a language no one around you ever bothered to learn. It's because your love was never meant to survive in low-frequency spaces. It was built to raise them, to shift atmospheres, to awaken souls, not to entertain temporary attractions or fill empty moments. You were never meant to fit in with the world's idea of love, because you weren't sent here to play the game. You were sent to expose the rules, and then rewrite them. That's why betrayal felt like death. That's why abandonment shook you to your core. Because it wasn't just emotional. It was spiritual warfare. You weren't just loving a person. You were pouring divine energy into someone who had no idea how sacred your presence was. And instead of receiving it, they ran. They rejected what they couldn't understand. Because your love didn't feed their ego. It confronted it. It shattered illusions. It spoke truth. And truth is uncomfortable when you've been hiding behind lies. You didn't just love deeply. You loved with spiritual accuracy. You saw them. Not the version they showed the world, but the soul they tried to bury. You spoke to it. You called it forward. You believed in its resurrection. But here's the thing about light. It doesn't always feel like love at first. To someone used to shadows, light feels violent. It burns. It reveals. and most people will run from what reveals them. So they labeled your love as too much, when in truth, it was too pure, too ancient, too divine for the games they were still playing. You weren't just showing them affection, you were showing them a reflection of the version of themselves they were too afraid to become. And that kind of love, it's not soft, it's not safe, it's not something you can fake your way through. It demands transformation. That's why they couldn't stay. Because staying with you meant confronting every part of themselves that wasn't ready for freedom. And sometimes, freedom terrifies more than captivity. But here's where the shift happens. Their rejection wasn't your failure. It was confirmation. Confirmation that your heart is tuned to a frequency that doesn't lower itself to be heard. It calls others higher, and only the brave will follow. You don't need to beg to be understood. You don't need to shrink to be accepted. You were meant to disrupt the patterns of superficial love and replace them with something cosmic. Your love is not made for the masses. It's made for alignment, for destiny, for divine union. And that kind of love doesn't chase. It attracts what is ready and repels what is not. So if they left, let them. If they couldn't understand you, stop explaining. You weren't sent to fit in. You were sent to shift everything around you, to hold a vibration that can't be bought, broken, or betrayed, only recognized by those vibrating at the same level. And in the next few moments, you're about to realize why your love has been your spiritual weapon all along, and what it's actually preparing you for. Don't blink. What if the moment your heart shattered wasn't the end of your story, but the exact second your true timeline began? You thought it was a collapse. You thought love failed. You blamed yourself for feeling too much, trusting too quickly, loving too deeply. But what if that heartbreak was never meant to destroy you? What if it was sacred interference, a divine interruption, to stop you from merging your soul with something that could never hold your light? Because your heart wasn't broken, it was recalibrated. You see, the chosen one doesn't just fall in love, they merge frequencies. And when the vibration isn't right, the universe doesn't whisper. It shakes you. It rips the illusion. It breaks the cycle. Not to punish you, but to protect you. That pain you felt, that unbearable silence after betrayal, it was the universe detaching you from something that could not go where your soul was being sent. It wasn't rejection, it was refinement. And I know, it didn't feel holy. It felt like hell. Sleepless nights, shattered trust. Grief you couldn't explain, because how do you explain mourning a connection that was never truly safe? But your soul knew. Your higher self remembered. It said, this is not love, this is not alignment, this is a detour that ends in spiritual suffocation. So the universe stepped in, and when it did, you lost them, but you found you. Not the version of you that loved just to feel needed, but the version that would one day love only from a place of wholeness. You see, heartbreak didn't weaken you. It activated you. It stripped away the illusions. It burned down the fantasy so that the truth could rise from the ashes. And the truth is this: your heart was too sacred to remain untrained, too powerful to operate at the wrong frequency. So the pain came not to end your love life, but to rebuild it with precision. Every tear realigned you. Every loss rewired your standards. Every silent night rewrote the geometry of your soul, until your heart stopped begging to be chosen and started remembering that it already was. You stopped chasing validation. You stopped accepting crumbs. You stopped confusing connection with destiny, because that heartbreak didn't just hurt. It initiated you into clarity, into boundaries, into divine awareness. And now your heart beats to a higher rhythm. Now your love language is discernment. Now your attraction is no longer to potential, but to presence. You were never too emotional. You were just tuned to a channel the wrong people couldn't hear. So the static had to be cleared. The noise had to be silenced. The past had to fall apart, so your future could finally recognize you. And maybe now, just maybe, you're beginning to understand. What if that heartbreak wasn't punishment, but your sacred preparation? You've spent so long looking back, replaying what went wrong, asking why they didn't see you, why they didn't stay, why the love you gave with all your soul wasn't enough for someone who claimed they'd never leave. But maybe you've been facing the wrong direction. Because the answers you seek aren't behind you, they're ahead. What if, right now, in this very moment, there's someone being shaped by the same fire that refined you? Someone whose soul has been shattered, rebuilt, and awakened, just like yours. Not perfect, not polished, but readying. Being spiritually aligned to carry what you carry. Not just your love, but your light. You see, the one who can truly hold you, not handle you, not tolerate you, but hold you, isn't behind schedule. They're on divine timing, because a connection like yours, it doesn't happen by chance. It's not created through compatibility tests or mutual hobbies. It's orchestrated, above you, around you, through you, by something far greater than human logic. And that's why the wait has felt so long. Because your connection isn't based on convenience, it's based on convergence. Two souls, molded by separation, pain, elevation, and silence, learning the same spiritual lessons in different dimensions, until the frequency is right, until the inner work is done, until love no longer comes from need, but from overflow. You aren't difficult to love. You are difficult to deceive. And that's what confuses people who only know how to perform love, not embody it. Your energy doesn't just want romance. It demands alignment. Not because you're picky, but because your soul has a blueprint, and anyone misaligned with it will cause disturbance in your spirit before they ever even touch your body. And this is why nothing worked before. Because those past connections, they weren't unions. They were mirrors. They revealed what still needed healing, what still needed shedding, what still needed to evolve before you could stand next to someone who sees you fully and doesn't flinch. And yes, you've been lonely, but even that loneliness was holy. Because while it felt like a waiting room, it was actually a sacred training ground, where the divine whispered, "Wait, not yet. I'm still preparing both of you." This isn't just love. This is activation. The one who can hold you isn't someone who flatters your ego. It's someone who reflects your essence, who's done the work, who's bled in silence, who's chosen growth over comfort, just like you. And when the time is right, you won't have to force it. You won't have to beg to be understood. You won't have to tone yourself down to be digestible. They will see you the way you've always seen others, and they'll know instantly, "There you are. I've been preparing for you." So stop wondering why it hasn't happened yet. Stop blaming yourself for being rare. Stop measuring your worth by the timelines of people who were never walking your path. You are not waiting for love. You are aligning with it. And when they appear, you'll realize why it never worked with anyone else. You thought your love was a weakness. You thought feeling deeply made you breakable. You thought being loyal, intense, and real was the reason you kept getting hurt. But hear this, and let it burn through every lie you've ever believed. Your love was never just human. It was a calling. It was heaven pulsing through your veins. It was divine intelligence disguised as affection. You weren't here to chase relationships. You were sent to awaken souls. That's why it hurt so much. Because you weren't just loving people. You were carrying them, healing them, activating them, even when they didn't understand the fire you brought. You didn't love wrong. You loved with spiritual authority, and it terrified those still hiding behind masks. Let this truth explode in your spirit. You didn't come here to be loved like everyone else. You came to change the meaning of love itself. Your love rewrites stories. It confronts illusions. It breaks generational patterns. It doesn't bow to culture. It bows to purpose. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for the one who was born to recognize your soul before you speak.